Week 2. Oh, Lord. There was some ups, some downs, and gosh golly gee, Taylor Swift, you done did it again. The downfall of the Chiefs dynasty begins.
Yes, Bucks McGee, and I figure we'll build up to that because we've got a lot of emotions and opinions to speak on that one.
Oh, yes, we do. Happy week 2, sir. Happy week 2.
Happy week two indeed. So we'll start off with, of course, this game that we're currently watching: the Chargers and the Raiders. The unexpected, because of this Taylor Swift-led downfall, the unexpected battle for first in the AFC West. There's a lot of balls being aired out in the first half. They're looking kind of pretty for the Chargers. They're not looking quite so pretty for Geno's Raiders.
I don't know what it is, man. The first play of the game alone, right off the bat, interception. Gino's trying. I'll give him credit, but Bowers isn't 100%, and the Chargers just seem to want it more. And yet again, week 2, our boy Herbie's doing his thing, and you can't knock them, man. These guys are playing some good, solid ball. The defense is good. Got to give them credit.
Yeah, the Chargers are they can close this one out. They'll be 2-0. It's almost a 3-game lead because of they've already beaten the Chargers, and this Raiders game, of course, also counts as a divisional win. So they are looking pretty to avoid what they usually collapse late in the season. So they're kind of padding the buffer zone a little bit to in case they slip up a little bit.
Yep, this ain't your daddy's Chargers. For years past, they would get a lead and then blow it, and then we'd sit there and say, wow, all this talent. They can't finish the job. Right now,
Hmm.
they're in firm control, and if they finish this game off, then yeah, it's basically it's a 3-game lead, and they're playing well. Herbie doesn't have to be the guy. Their defense has really stepped up, so they are looking really good right now.
And yet again, a Quentin Johnston sighting.
I know, man. Like we thought last week was like his highlight. We're like, all right, he's done for the year. Maybe we'll see him week 17. No, back to back, he could be actually decent.
Yeah. Uh, some not so decent news around the league this week. This was not a good week to be a quarterback, despite uh how well things are going for Justin Herbert. Um, the first one, of course, is the biggest one. Joe Burrow. We joked around a little off air that his offensive line is not. I think we could assemble 5 people off the street that could block better for Joe Burrow, because not only did the Jags get to him, but they got to him a little too hard. The nasty turf toe has reared its ugly head, and he will be out until darn near Christmas.
Yeah, like you said, could pick me, you, and 3 other dudes, and we probably would have done a better job. Yeah. This just proves how badly run this franchise is. Like, let's be honest, that they did nothing to address the offensive line. The offensive line was barely adequate. You poured all your money into basically 3 guys, and now Jake Browning is your man. Now he's done this before, but do people honestly think that he's going to keep them afloat enough to possibly hit a playoff run, or Joe comes back, save the season? I don't think so. I think they'll barely be 500. I think there'll be a couple games where maybe they can play some spoiler, but I think their season is done. I think this organization really needs to
Ooh,
look at itself to see how they run things. Do you trust the Bengals? Do you
I
think they'll make
don't.
the play?
No, I don't. But it's funny to me because that was going to be my next question. The fact that they always get those slow start. Here they are 2-0, but despite this injury, that 2-0 start doesn't look like like a sign of things turning because of this.
They could be the worst 2-0 team.
Yeah, that's true. They barely survived both these games against two inferior opponents.
Yeah, exactly. Bad coaching by the Jags. Good job, Liam Cohen. Really, great job. But let's be honest, like they're about to hit a tough stretch in their schedule, and I don't trust them. Like I hope Jake Browning turns it around and maybe he becomes the guy, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, let's trade Joe Burrow, and they somehow flip this organization around, which would never happen. But let's be realistic. Um, if they can somewhat stay afloat, be 500, it'd be a miracle.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll give Jake Browning credit for is he was able to keep some uh, rhythm going with Jamar Chase throughout the remainder of that game. But I don't know if it's so much Jake Browning maturing or if it's Jamar Chase just being Superman for the rest of for the last 3 quarters.
Oh no, it was Jamar, and honestly, defensively, they just kind of let him do what he wanted to do. It's going to be a situation where the run game is going to have to be center stage in this team, and then from there, go play action and go from there. They're not going to put up the numbers that Joe put up last year. It's going to be rough, but I say that now, and the next thing you know, they win 3 in a row, and then I'm sitting here going, oh, okay, I guess maybe they're real, and then they just totally bottom out. But right now, they've got to take it game by game, and their defense is going to have to show up every week.
Well, that's a pretty tall assumption.
Well, there,
I hope.
there's Trey Hendrickson and Trey Hendrickson. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Bengals fans, hey, there's always next year.
Very interesting that you brought up, watch they'll surprise and win off the next 3 because I thought to myself, let's look up what their next 3 games are. The first 2 of those 3 are on the road, and those 3 opponents are the Vikings, the Broncos, and the Detroit Lions.
All right, the Lions, no way in hell. No way in hell that happens. I'm sorry, no way in hell. The Vikings, I'll give you maybe a puncher's chance since JJ McCarthy's out for 4 weeks himself. Oh man. And then who was after the Vikings?
Denver Broncos.
Denver's been shaky the first 2 weeks, but I would think by this time they would have it together. So they could go 1-2. Maybe if Denver still hasn't figured it out, 2-1. But it's a tall order.
A shaky Denver Broncos team going against this Bengals team who's barely survived. So a shaky Denver team might actually look like a quality playoff contender against these Bengals.
They're just going to have to play really near perfect ball, and their defense is going to have to show up. It can't just be on the offense because this offense, I'm sorry, like I said, I give Browning credit. He's a tough guy, but he's not Joe Burrow.
No, not by a long shot. Well, we'll switch things up and we'll go to JJ next since we invoked him already. Now, JJ McCarthy, I watched the Sunday night game with bated breath, knowing how the Monday nighter went. So I'm like, oh, okay, just give him a little while. Maybe he'll turn it around. He did not turn it around. And the Vikings looked a very much miserable team against an Atlanta team whose defense struggled mightily against your Bucs last week. That was not the case, although both these teams kind of struggled in their own right. This was very much a defensive type of effort that the Falcons just happened to outlast. But JJ McCarthy comes out as hurt, like you said, missing 4 weeks coming up. And the first thing I almost kind of want to make a pun and be like, you think they're missing, you think they're regretting not bringing back Danny Dimes.
Here's the thing. I give JJ credit. He tried, but one high ankle sprain. Once that happens, you're 2 to 5 weeks. So it is what it is. In that game, both teams weren't exactly lighting the world on fire. The offenses really weren't great. It was just the fact that the Falcons defense just played a little better. And that's what it came down to, really. So now Atlanta's got to figure out what to do and how to basically survive for 4 to 5 weeks. The run game, just like in Cincinnati, the run game needs to be important because I don't think they're going to be an aerial assault team. Now it's going to be a situation where they're just going to have to grind things out. Their defense is solid. They've got a good defense, so their defense is just going to have to show up, and hopefully they can play 500 ball till JJ gets back.
And Aaron Jones has also gone off to a bit of a struggling start as well. I mean, he was okay against the Bears. He kind of had the same type of game JJ did, where he started slow and then started turning on towards the end. But he was very much almost invisible against the Falcons. So
Yeah,
hoping for their running game to show up is right now looks just as well off as they're waiting for their passing game to show up.
yeah, and it's going to be, basically it's Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is going to be the guy. Carson Wentz is decent. Carson Wentz, personally. So it's one of those things where maybe he, catches fire and is able to keep them, above 500. And, they hope maybe Detroit doesn't figure it out and they're still up and down. Right now, the clear cut in that division is Green Bay. So that's what they're worried about. The Bears are a hot mess. They can't do anything right still. So if they're hoping the Bears can bottom out and, them and the Lions can play 500 and kind of stay even with each other. Once JJ gets back, maybe they can, catch fire.
Stay as close to the Packers as humanly possible because the Packers have the Browns up next. So,
but you know what? You got to give the Browns some credit. They've people have written them off, but they've played decent ball. Like they've lost, but they've stuck around. So it could be a situation where this is the game where, Green Bay drops the ball and somehow, Joe Flacco has one of those special games and they end up winning. They're the ones who win a 17-16 game,
Well, Vikings fans hope that you're right there.
Skull.
Another quarterback that sadly hit the skids this week is Justin Fields, and not even sure who the Jets' backup quarterback is, so this could be a rough one for Gangrene.
Justin finally gets his contract. He's finally doing his thing, and then boom, concussion protocol. It's actually Tyrod Taylor, I believe.
Oh,
I believe so.
The man who never gets a chance in a starting gig finally gets a starting gig.
No, the man who comes off the bench has two good games and then just you never see him again. So
3 years later he's with a new team.
So it's gonna be interesting to see what the Jets' offense will be. On Sunday, they play Tampa, so it's gonna probably be a lot of run.
Mm-hmm.
Run heavy. I don't know how much he's got in the arm. I don't know if he's really going to be slinging it all over the place. But, Aaron Glenn may say, you know what? No, we're going to play it as if it's Fields and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of a comparable skill set between Tyrod Taylor and Justin Fields. So, in theory, the offense could continue, or at least the offensive game plan could continue without much adjustment. But Tyrod Taylor is not quite Justin Fields.
Yeah, I think the scrambling is where it's at. I think that's especially where Justin Fields really shines if you're comparing the two. So it's going to be a situation of just making sure that Tyrod stays upright and they're able to keep the mistakes to a minimum. But Breece Hall is probably going to be really featured in this game.
Who needs a bounce back because he did not play very well in this last game. He was almost invisible.
Yeah, exactly. So you're almost saying, okay, well, season's not on the line, but with concussions, you just don't know. It could be just 1 week, or next thing you know, lingering effects, it could be 2 to 3 weeks. So the Jets are right now just, they're lucky that, Miami's horrible.
Yes.
New England hasn't gotten really on track, even though they won. They're still kind of iffy. So they're, hoping that maybe, they can kind of right the ship and at least stay decent until Fields comes back.
By virtue of playing those awful Dolphins.
Yeah. No. Jeez.
And the fourth quarterback, who's not been ruled out yet, but the faithful in the nation's capital are waiting with bated breath and crossing every finger until they have on their bodies that Jaden Daniels will not miss time for Washington.
You guys were all in. See, that's what happens when your season before luck is on your side and things just fall your way, Then next thing you know, karma comes back and says, "Hey, remember that Hail Mary? I'm about to collect on that." And
Yeah.
then you miss the knee. So it's one of those things, So they've got to look at it and really think, is it worth putting them out there? If he needs to sit, then I think you sit him. If that means you take a loss, then you take a loss. You got it's a long season. Is week, we sitting there looking at it saying, okay, well, if we put him in, is he going to really hurt this knee? And then he's out 3 to 4 weeks. Do we want a Bengals situation? No, you don't. So I think you have him go through practice, but if he doesn't seem 100%, if he's not at least 80%, then you got to sit him.
And if I'm not mistaken, they're playing the Raiders this week upcoming. So these Raiders are pretty spirited without Jaden Daniels. If they do sit him out, like on one hand, maybe that's the game to sit him out because they're still the Raiders. In theory, they may still have enough to get by. But on the other hand, these are not the Raiders from last year, seemingly through 2 weeks. So
if they play like they're playing tonight, then Washington can sit there. Honestly, if I'm Washington, I'm like, you know what, we're gonna sit you for a week, and let's roll. I think we've got enough to beat them.
yeah, that's not, especially with the kind of fire they have, the defense has behind Pete Carroll.
Yeah.
And Washington's offensive line has not quite figured that out yet. Like you said, is it worth the Joe Burrow situation? Just take the week off. You guys are getting off to a slow start. Don't make it even slower.
Exactly. Like I totally didn't know till tonight that Devin White was on the Raiders. He's making plays like he's back in freaking Tampa. I think Jamal Adams is there too. All it takes is one of these guys to fall on Daniel's knee or whatever, and then he's out. So like,
Yeah.
take your chance. Who knows? Maybe your backup can pull something out, but if not, let's be realistic. You're chasing the Eagles, and the Eagles lucked out this week. You might be able to catch them on an off week. So your long term is where it's at.
Falling on a quarterback's knee, imagery you are very familiar with from one Mo Lewis and one Marcus Pollard.
Yeah, but it turned out all right.
Yeah.
It turned out. And Mo Lewis busted Drew's like kidney, man. The man was ready to bleed to death. That's okay. It's all right.
So, speaking of happy memories in Bucks McGee's life, a recent memory is the Bucks now starting out 2-0. It would have been nice.
Do you
Nice
know?
Rebecca Buka caught his second touchdown on that one play, though.
It would have been, but do you know the Bucks are the only team to go 2-0 5 straight years in the league?
I heard that during the broadcast, and I thought to myself, that is a very undersung stat. You think that would be a little bit more well known, widely known.
Yeah, it's just it's weird, man. The Bucks have these weird stats, and it's like, damn, it's like, I don't know. You play in a crappy division, and you pull this stuff out. But we finally won in Houston. That's all that matters. Finally won in Houston.
And I noticed something that Rachaad White, now granted it probably didn't come along till late in the second half, but Rachaad White actually looked competent running between the tackles.
Dude, Rachaad
pass catcher.
It was like he was like, damn, this kid took my job. I got to figure something out. And it was just a rebirth, man. Rashad White, thank you, Lord. Oh, man. That drive where it was literally just him. And I'm like, all right, keep feeding him the ball. It was an ugly game. Our offensive line just got beat up. You've got to give Houston credit. Their ends are incredible. Their ends are insane. Anderson and Hunter, those guys are just nonstop motor. Their secondary is solid. It's just their offense is bad.
To that point, even with Wirfs being out and Houston's line being what it is, I thought they actually did a half decent job at keeping Baker somewhat clean, given that.
They did once they started running the ball a little more consistent. Once we got into that, and we always do that where it's like, okay, there's 2 or 3 series where we're just gonna run, we're just gonna throw, and I'm like, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. You got to run a little. And then all of a sudden, Baker pulls off one of his patented 17-yard angry runs, and we somehow survived the drive. But with Houston, it's just I don't know. Like the offense is just not there. Like it's like Nico Collins, and that's it.
Yeah.
It just makes no sense. Like, what's his name? Schultz, tight end, non-existent. He had 1 or 2 catches. Chubb did have the 25-yard touchdown run, but at that point, I think Tampa almost let it happen because they're like, okay, 2 minutes on there, we can try to win this game. Because some teams will do that, but it was just there's nothing there. And Stroud just couldn't hit some guys. There were a couple throws in the end zone that he just couldn't hit.
And it's almost like okay, great, a Nick Chubb signing. The man's not dead, but he scores a touchdown, which you want to be happy about. But at the same time, they have Joe Mixon, so it's like Chubb's in here doing the thing, but the guy we paid all the money to is not. So it's almost like a bittersweet pill.
It was almost like they shouldn't have scored the touchdown.
Yeah.
I watched the game and I'm like, I wouldn't have scored. If I'm them, I'm probably falling down at the 2, eating the clock. You kick the 3, you probably end up winning the game. Mm-hmm. By scoring that quickly, even though you were getting after Baker pretty much most of the game, you're still giving them 2 minutes. And then they just literally just ran down the field on you.
Do you think the 2-0 streak is so undersung just because half of it was during the Brady years where success was kind of expected, so people kind of overlook it, and then the other half during these Baker years where defense has been inconsistent, injuries have been a consistent message, so it's easy to forget because the Bucs have not been a perfect team despite this success of hot starts.
I think it's just one of those stats that nobody thinks about because let's be honest, you're week 1 and 2, you're like, okay, whatever. It's teams are still trying to find themselves. Generally it's not till week 4 or so that a team kind of figures out what their identity is. So it's kind of like one of those forgotten stats. Oh, okay, wow, 5 years, 2-0, okay. I think I think with this year, being able to finally beat Atlanta because they swept, and then beating Houston finally in Houston, so I think it kind of gives a little extra oomph to it. But okay, it's cool and all, but it's not something to hang your hat on because what you do at the beginning of the season isn't going to help you out at the end per se. You want to make sure you finish strong. We still have another game against Atlanta and stuff like that, but hey, it's one of those things you kind of hang your hat on.
Yeah, it's kind of like who cares about 2-0 if you finish 9-8 and you barely make it in.
Exactly. If you end up like the Steelers, no one cares.
Dun-dun-dun. Before we get to those Steelers, we'll talk about my Colts because we are also 2-0 now.
Danny Dimes, the savior of Indy.
Yes, I don't know if all the camera ops took the play off on that field goal. I'm not quite sure where that penalty was, but I'm glad the flags got thrown because that first field goal attempt was a little embarrassing despite it being from a lengthy distance.
Yeah, you can't touch the center. That's what happened. Basically what happened was the Denver defensive player touched the center. You can't do that. because it looks like you're trying to climb them, and that's a no-no. So if the guy had just gone up straight up, game over. But unfortunately, you didn't, and it's one of those things where you're like, would they have called that any other time? Now, mind you, it's a rule's a rule, so they call it, and you and Indiana Jones move on 2-0.
Yeah, it's a matter of it's a penalty if you make it exaggerate. How exaggerated do you commit the penalty?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, are you really? Exactly. Is it that much where you're like, it's really going to affect the game, or is it like, do I just let it slide?
Yeah,
But
and
but hey,
I see happy notes behind Danny Dimes' performance here because one, he went over 300 yards, which is probably something the Giants fans weren't seeing too often.
mm-hmm.
And two, I also kind of figured that it was going to be tough to go to Pittman in this game because of Surtain. And Tyler Warren stepped up for the second week in a row as a rookie and showing that he's an instant security blanket for Indiana Jones. As I
Yeah,
guess he's trying to kill the Danny Dimes moniker and go for a new nickname.
there you go. You might as well. Hey, he's 2-0. I think he's just in a better place. He doesn't. There's not the pressure. Yeah, they want to win, but it isn't that New York pressure, and he's just doing his thing. So you've got to give him credit. Right now, it's 2-0. You enjoy that right now. You run in the division. Hey, take it.
Yeah, what do you think about the weapons so far? I mean, Warren's been very good through 2 weeks. Pittman had an off week, but he had tough competition. Josh Downs really hadn't shown up. Taylor had just under 100 all-purpose yards in week one. He really blew up this week, 160 on the ground. So the weapons are producing for Danny as well.
Yeah, I think the weapons are solid. I think they've got a competent quarterback who can get the ball out there and run this offense. Defense is solid. So it's a situation where I think they're just going to get better. They're going to improve. There's no real expectation. Like people think, they're going to be somewhat competitive, but I think they're going to be better than that. I think they very well could win this division. They just have to play within themselves and not try to do too much. And I think as long as you keep, Jones grounded like that, where you remind him there's other guys around who can make plays. You don't have to be the guy. Then he's going to be okay.
And especially by virtue of, thank you, by the way, sending the Houston Texans to 0-2. All of a sudden, the division looks a little bit more attainable in the early going, and we have the Titans next week, so we've got an opportunity for even more of a fast start.
Yep. See, there you go. You guys could be sitting 3-0 and being the beasts of the AFC South. Look at that.
Imagine if we could be happy for almost the whole month of the start of the season. If we could both be happy for this.
See that? Dreams do come true.
Well, the dreams are not coming true so far for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They obviously had that big emotional win in New York, and then Seattle came to town, kind of licking their wounds off a loss. You think like, okay, this will probably be a pretty close game. Other than DK Metcalf scoring against his old team, not much else went positive. And another 30-point output by the Steelers' opponent. This time, Aaron Rodgers was not able to have much offensive success. So I look at this and think, okay, the Steelers are supposed to be this big defensive team. This is what they're hanging their hat on, and giving up 30 plus in both games to start off the season, probably not a good sign, especially with the overqualified game manager taking snaps.
Yeah, like let's be realistic. If your offense isn't putting up the points, it doesn't matter what kind of defense you got. Sooner or later, it's going to crack. And
Right.
yeah, they've got some names on this defense.
Colts. I know this from last year, last 2 years.
It's one of those things where that's great. You guys signed Ramsey and all, or you guys traded for Ramsey and all this stuff, but let's be realistic. You guys are getting long in the tooth on the front end there. And it's, you assume that, I don't think people really thought that Aaron was going to throw like he did week one. Like it's not sustainable. So they're just a 9-8 team at best. Like that's it. For those who had this weird idea that they were going to probably pop off 11 or 12 wins, I don't see it. Their defense is rough. The offense is just not there. Now, like I said, it's only week 2, but if this is what you're getting by week 5, 6, 7, then enjoy what you've got, and hopefully you guys can at least finish with a continued winning record. But you're not going to do it. You're not going to make the playoffs at that point.
How bad do the Steelers have to be for them to clean house?
I think even if they go 9-8, I think the whispers then become a little louder, and then it's a situation of what are we doing with this team offensively? What is this team? Because you think about it, if Rodgers leaves after this year, you have no quarterback. like you don't have literally it was like the worst run off season I think you've seen in a while. You don't have a quarterback. Mason Rudolph's going to be your guy. Because if you go 9-8, there's a quarterback that's probably going to fall to you isn't going to be anybody that's like, wow, who's going to light the world on fire. It's not like it's going to be somebody who's, going to, turn your franchise around. It'll just be another 9-8 type quarterback at best. So was it worth going through the Aaron Rodgers fiasco of the offseason just to not get yourself a quarterback? When you just could have went with Mason Rudolph, probably won 6 games maybe, and got yourself somebody decent.
I mean, they could hand the reins off to Will Howard of Ohio State, if I'm not mistaken. But at the same time, that's also a situation where, like, is he in it? He's not going to play this year, and is he the type of prospect that is going to be ready after 1 year of just watching and not playing? That's probably not. He probably needs a little bit more seasoning. He's not the prospect to play right away.
Yeah, exactly. You're just gonna have to throw him in the fire and see him, and Mason will probably have to battle in the offseason. Who knows? They'll probably find somebody off the scrap heap to sign, and they'll just relive this nightmare again. That's just what the Steelers do.
For the 3rd straight year, they would have to do that for the 3rd straight year. Just keep recycling someone else's dirty laundry.
Because 9-8 is the new 15-2.
Oh, we remember the days when the Steelers went 15-2. It was quite painful for me to watch. I hated every second of it.
Every couple of years they'd pop up in the AFC Championship game. Big Ben was there, but at least they were quality. Now you got nothing. It's sad. But now you're gonna find out. This is what they signed up for. Now they're gonna have to eat it.
Other teams that have not seen championship weekend in a little bit of time now, and they combined for 70-something points down in Big D.
Let's ride. Shows up. Russell Wilson. I can't fault him. I cannot fault him in this game. The man put up points. Their defense just got tired. Their defense got tired at the end of the game. You saw the shots. Like Brian Burns is like got his hands on his knees. He is like sucking wind. And it was just a situation where they couldn't stop Dallas when they needed to.
Yeah.
So you can't blame the offense, the Giants offense, because they put up 30+ points. The defense just couldn't stop a nosebleed. So the Giants lose. Dallas pulls this out. Dallas really shouldn't feel proud about it. You should have beat the Giants handily. You shouldn't have never went to overtime. So I wouldn't pump my chest if I'm a Dallas fan, but they're not anyways. They're still depressed over Micah being gone. They hate their team. So.
No, I mean, you have situations where, one, the Giants did everything in their power in the first half to keep the Cowboys in it. Penalty after penalty after penalty. There were PIs. There were holding calls on big kick returns that brought them back. I mean, they really tried to keep the Cowboys in it, especially considering the fact that the Cowboys play calling to me has not been any sense of wonderful. Dak, he might throw once to CD early on, and then he forgets he's there. Like he's over trying to keep Pickens involved. Pickens should be the guy to free up CD, not the other way around. And then at the end of the game, he finally starts throwing to CD, and what happens? CD starts catching everything he gets thrown at him, and then Dak just stops throwing at him again.
like I said, it's just the fact that the Cowboys are just dysfunctional. They can't figure it out. There's talent all on this team, but they just want a puppet as a head coach, and it's until the Cowboys get sold, this is what it's going to be. So it's a shame. There's talent. You overpaid a couple guys, and now this is what you've got. Uh, the run game you would hope would be a little better. I think if they ran the ball a little better, they would have been able to control the clock a little more. But it's Dak throwing to whatever random person they want to pick, and this is what it is. Um, yeah, they beat the Giants, but they should have. Like I said, they shouldn't be, too proud of this game because their defense gave up a ton. So I think you look at their defense and you're like, wow, Micah really was our defense, wasn't he? Because I think if Parsons was in this game doesn't go to overtime.
I think it's at a certain point where if you're fantasy owner or if you're betting on DraftKings, you just automatically start the quarterback playing against Dallas' defense because that unit cannot stop anything. Like you
No,
said, you and I plus 3 other guys could protect Joe Burrow. You and I plus 9 other guys could put up 25 against the Dallas defense.
yeah, I'd feel confident with that.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. Now, but the problem then with the Giants is okay, Russ is putting up these points. Everyone's starting to clamor for Dart to start. I think you still let him kind of sit. If Russ is putting up 30 points a game, if he does this again, if he does this again, then you've got to say, he's making us competitive. Like we weren't tanking. So then you get the problem.
And to that point on Jackson Dart, I mean, they're making these really strange decisions, like in this Dallas game, where they would just insert him for a random play here and there. He wasn't doing anything. It would be a run play or it would be a fake or like he's not doing it. Like they're just putting him in the game, like, here, take a snap, kid. Well, we won't actually let. Like, what is the point here? So couple that with the fact that Russ actually is playing well and very well at times. Like, why are you bringing this kid in the game to possibly get hurt?
Yeah, just have him play all of preseason and have him hand the ball off 20 times if that's what you're just doing. I don't want this. I don't want to hear, oh, well, we're just trying to get him game action. Like, that's what you get in the preseason. Like, there's
do anything.
Like, ooh, he handed off the ball. Wow. Like, let's say the Giants had won that game. Are you gonna say, wow, Dart was in and he handed off the ball? Wow, great work. He's ready to start. Like, come on, man. Like, it's the Giants. They're damn dysfunctional. Who knows? So we'll see what they do this week, but it's just I can't fault Russ. We're ready to dump on him anytime, but his rate, his deep ball is beautiful. You got to give him credit, and I've said this. His deep ball is legit, and the way he's able to get the ball out there, these guys are making plays. So we'll see what happens.
He painted it to neighbors a couple times. One in the back of the end zone, one on the sideline. He like for whatever reason, he's only been on the same roster as kid for like 6 months, but like he knows exactly where to find that kid. Or that kid knows exactly where to go where Russ is going to
throw it. Till Russ threw that pick at the end, and I was like, "Wow, man, really?" I was like, "Wow." I was giving you props, and then you just shat on it, bro. Like, what are you doing? But at the end of the day, if I'm Dallas, I'm not too proud of it. But it is what it is. It's a win. You move on. But the Giants shouldn't really hang their head. They went toe to toe with a decently offensive type team. So go with it.
I mean, you could also say that Dallas shouldn't be necessarily proud of the win because the only reason they won is because their kicker has an absolute miracle leg.
Yeah, exactly. This guy can kick nearly 70 yards. So if it's less than, if it's a 3-point or less, the Cowboys are always in it. Now you kind of have to think about that. When you're playing them, if you're not up by more than 4, then you're like, damn, this guy kicks a 70-yarder. We could end up losing or going to OT. So it's something to wonder. But right now, you're not really scared of the Cowboys.
the former soccer player who decided to be a software engineer. This guy's only connection to football should be programming the next Call of Duty game for Kyler.
Yeah, but nope, that man's getting paid well just to kick the ball 70 yards. So you got to give him credit.
Good from beyond 72. That kick to tie the game, I'm pretty sure would have cleared the crossbar from 75.
It's ridiculous.
Next up, another ridiculous is, as usual, the Chicago Bears. And you'd think, like, okay, Ben Johnson's kind of homecoming here, put up some points. We saw Detroit's defense struggle a little bit against the Packers. And I guess it was close for a little while, but by the time it was over, the Bears had given up 50 plus.
No, if you want to fix your ills in your life, you play the Bears. The Bears are absolutely horrible. Like, I don't even want to hear it. The Lions, I think, had a little something extra in the tank because of Ben going to Chicago. I think if he had gone anywhere else, it would have been whatever. But because you go to a division rival, especially the Bears, they wanted this a little more. But let's be honest. The Bears were getting the hype because of Ben Johnson. If we really looked at this roster, it's decent, but I'm not like, like they've got good wide receivers, they've got a decent running back, but they just can't do it. And Caleb's not good. Like, he's really not. He's more worried about painting his nails and everybody having a grand old time. And they've got to figure it out. Like, literally by midseason, if they're literally only 3 or 4 wins, then this team is a hot mess, and they really need to start thinking about what the future is at quarterback.
Missing Justin Fields.
Yeah, they were fools. If they had just kept Justin Fields, you bring in Ben Johnson, think about what this team might be.
Yeah. And this game also kind of, now again, maybe, like you said, maybe it's just a byproduct of playing the Bears, but it also seemed to, at least for a week, erase the doubts that the Lions have to get over Ben not being there and get used to the new offense, or new play caller, I should say, because I'm sure the offense hasn't really changed all that much, but get used to the new play caller. At least for 1 week, those doubts have kind of erased themselves.
Oh yeah, those doubts are on pause until they beat a team that's like really, a legit team. Like, and I hate to say that, but until they beat somebody who's like really, up there, then you could say, all right, they've kind of figured it out. The Bears are, I think, like I said, the Bears, I think, were a lot of preseason hype. The Bears right now need to figure a lot of things out. So it's until they beat somebody with a winning record who's, a perennial playoff type team who, you sit there and say, wow, I want to watch this game. Okay, you beat the Bears. Maybe you licked your wounds. Now let's see, when you play somebody real.
Yeah, they've got your Bucs coming up. They've got the Chiefs coming up before halfway point.
No. The Chiefs don't count. Chiefs don't count. Let's stop that. They're below now. The Chiefs do not count. Okay, give me somebody else.
Okay. Well, the only other team upcoming off the top of my head is those Bengals that, even without Burrow, there's still a lot of offensive talent to shut down, but they're probably not the same game plan that the Lions would fear going in.
If Jake Browning beats the freaking Lions, I'm buying a Jake Browning jersey. Okay. All right. Like, I wish the guy luck. He's like one of those good guys, but come on, bro. He barely beat the Jags, and you think he's gonna beat the Lions? Come on, bro. I can't, dude. You give too much credit, man. I'm a pessimist, but come on, man. Yeah, Jake Browning's going to go 450 yards and 5 touchdowns, toe-to-toe with Jared Goff.
5 years of 2-0 starts. What do you have to be a pessimist about?
It's because those quarterbacks can throw the ball.
One quarterback that could throw the ball, or at least got back on track in his winning ways, Lamar Jackson. This game was a little bit of a struggle against the Browns, and they piled on in the fourth quarter to make it look like it was not competitive. The classic backdoor cover.
Oh yeah, just the I think just the Browns defense just probably got tired at the end of the game and they were able to put up points. You got to give the Browns defense some credit. They were in it for most of the game. And I think there was just a point where it was like they were just tired. I give Flacco a little bit of credit. He made it a bit interesting, but this was a game that the Ravens should never have been in doubt.
Yeah, no. It should have been 21 points hung up in the first quarter, not wait until the fourth to pull yourselves away.
Yeah, but you win. You win the game. You give them credit. They figured it out. But that's just what Cleveland's going to be. It's going to be a 3.5 quarters of quality defense, and then their defense is going to get tired because they're on the field all day because Joe Flacco can't do squat. And then they bring in Dylan Gabriel for a little bit. Okay, he got his first touchdown in garbage time. Let me see some Shedeur Sanders. Let me see what he's got. At that point, it's just Cleveland has just ruined this whole thing. Like Flacco shouldn't even be playing. Like, let's be real. Like
No.
Dylan Gabriel should. No.
I could have told them that. I could have told them that.
Like, did you think he was gonna like carry you to a playoff berth? Come on, man. Like, that's just ridiculousness. You should have just went with Dylan Gabriel, and then Shedeur is the 2. Let them battle it out and figure out what your future is gonna be. But the Ravens did what they needed to do to survive. It wasn't pretty, but with Burrow being out, that's one less team they really got to worry about.
With Burrow being out and the Steelers not being able to stop a nosebleed, the Ravens may very well still wind up, even if they limp to it, capturing this division title with ease.
Yeah, they could have it wrapped up by freaking Thanksgiving. The way this is going to go, because right now it's not looking good.
How close are they? It's hard now. Granted, with the state of their division, as we just went over, it's a little hard to make this argument. But how close are they to knocking on the door of the fraudulent penthouse with the choke against Buffalo and then struggling for 3 quarters against Cleveland?
Right now they're in the room. Right now they are in the room. They are the fraudulent penthouse. Let's be real. They've got to turn it around, and they need to like handle the teams that they're supposed to. And then at that point, when they start playing these elite teams, if it's a battle and they somehow eke it out, then they've proven that they've proven their worth. Right now, Buffalo is the team. Right now, I look at the AFC, and Buffalo is the team. There isn't anybody else in the AFC that I'm like. Now, there's playoff teams. For sure, there's plenty. There's 2-0 teams where you're like, all right, they're figuring it out, but they're not at that level yet. But right now, I think you have to say Buffalo is that team, and the Ravens, they got to prove something. They've got to go. They got to get hot, and they got to go on a long run, and then you're like, all right, okay.
Josh Allen versus Indiana Jones in the AFC title game. Let's go.
Wow. It could happen. And you know what? I'd root for him. I'd root for Indiana Jones. I'd rock his jersey. I'd have to have him put Indiana on my jersey. I Jones.
I Jones.
I Jones for Indiana Jones.
Like he's the latest Apple phone product.
Exactly. But you know what? It all depends on your seeding, man. If you fall in that right spot where these other teams beat the hell out of each other and you don't have to see them, and you slide your way into the conference championship, anything can happen.
Yeah, who knows? San Diego. The Chargers fall apart. The Chiefs backdoor the division title, and then you get low-hanging fruit in the first round.
Chiefs ain't making nothing. You better cut that out.
Well, let's transition and talk about those Chiefs. They did lose to the Eagles. They do lose to 0-2. This defense put up a worthy effort. I mean, they kept the Chiefs in it, but the offense looked extremely, extremely underwhelming.
All their defense did was blitz like the whole time, and then Jalen Hurts is just throwing stuff in the air. It's like playing Madden, and like you're playing somebody who's so much better than you. You're just throwing it up in the air, and you're hoping the game glitches and your guy catches it, because that Smith catch there for like literally the only like real touchdown was just impressive. I guess it is what it is.
The one that took him 4 attempts, running the same play to every different quadrant of the field.
Sooner or later, it's got to hit, man. It's like gambling. Sooner or later, you got to hit, right? No, the Chiefs offensively are horrible. They are a putrid team. Like, let's be real. It's Patrick Mahomes and what? Now, Thornton had that touchdown, but how many times did they try to throw that boy the ball? That was just blown coverage by Philly.
Yeah.
Philly should have figured it out. Okay, at some point he's going to try to chuck this thing. Let's play a little better defense. But Thornton, formerly of New England, got his touchdown, and then the Chiefs fans were living delusional, thinking, "Oh, this was it. We're coming back." And then Philly just said, "No, we're going to run the ball and just tush push our asses to the victory." So the Chiefs have a lot of problems. There's a lot of problems on this team. They can't run the ball. Patrick is your best running back. I don't know what happened to Pachenko. What has happened to Pachenko?
I barely even see him on the field. I think I actually see Kareem Hunt on the field more, and he's not playing very effective either.
Kareem Hunt gets a couple little runs. He'll get his catch. The only time I see Pachenko on the field is when they pan to him and he's yelling, "Let's effing go!" Blah blah blah. Well, dude, you need to run and gain more than 2 yards, because I don't know what the hell you're doing.
Yeah. You're not effing going anywhere, buddy.
Hollywood Brown is non-existent. Travis Kelce's a geriatric old man now. He is doing nothing.
Yeah. Travis Kelce will have like a couple catches a game where like the clock's turned back and you think, "Oh, okay, this is where he gets back on track," and then you won't see him again for 2 quarters, and then he'll come back and you'll see a couple plays where the ball was just overthrown, or he catches it and bobbles and he just doesn't look the same. So it just like he gives you that hope, like, okay, here he is, here's the Travis we know, and then it's just gone.
No, at this point, like they've got to get him some weapons, and everyone's like, "Oh, well, if they could trade for Tyreek." Tyreek is not the answer. Tyreek is not the answer to this team. Okay, he gives you a deep threat, but what about the other stuff? You can't do anything. You can't do anything 10 to 15 yards. But you think, are you just going to throw the ball downfield all day? Go ahead. Teams will figure that out.
And another reason why the deep threat's not the answer is because Patrick's doing this the entire game. That offensive line is not that confident.
No, they were banged up and they just can't figure it out. So the Chiefs are in a lot of hurt. They need to win. They need a win. Like there's no ifs, ands about it. They can't go 0-3 and think they're going to be okay. There's no way.
No, I mean, even with Denver having the brain fart in Indy, plus struggling to beat Tennessee, I still think that their struggles are not as bad as what we've seen out of the Chiefs. We've seen a lot more competence out of the Raiders, and of course the Chargers are just high flying, lightning striking all down up and down the field. So this is not looking very good for the Chiefs.
No, and their defense, even though it's good, you've seen it on the telecast. They're like bickering with each other, and of course Chris Jones is in the middle of it all. So they're all fighting with each other, and it's just it doesn't matter how great you are. If you are on the field more than your offense, you're going to get tired. It's just not gonna work, and that's where they're at right now. So that's great. You got Patty Mahomes, and then all the talk of him being the GOAT, and he was going to win 7, 8, 9 rings. Yep, that shit went down the crapper real quick. But that's okay. Tom's in the skybox tonight here, even though they're getting whooped for the Raiders. He's given his knowledge, but it is what it is. But the Chiefs, at the end of the day, they've got to figure it out. And if they can't get some weapons or just get some continuity going, it's going to be a long season, and it's going to be a season that they haven't experienced in a long time.
You'd figure for the quality of their talent and the stability that the organization has had over the last 7 years or so, you'd think that the fall from grace would have been a little more gradual. It would have been quite this falling off the cliff. And it's funny, it doesn't feel like a falling off the cliff because it's the same issues we've been talking about for 2 years.
Yeah, and they just never really addressed the issues. They were like, okay, well, we'll pick up some fast receiver, and Patrick will be fine because Patrick will solve everything. Sorry to tell you, it's not gonna happen. He's getting older. And
Yeah.
like that's great, but you think he's gonna be in the league 15 years still scrambling around like that? Like it's not gonna happen. So far this year, we haven't seen those crazy Patrick passes and all of that. Teams have finally figured it out. So it's you don't have the pieces. So they're like, okay, Patrick, do whatever. Teams aren't scared of them anymore. The fear of playing the Chiefs no longer exists. So it's like, okay, let's see what you can do.
Yeah, as long as you game plan that defense, you can figure out how to beat them.
Yeah, that's it. If you can, pick up a couple blitzes because, Spags is great at that. He'll send those blitzes from places that you're not expecting. But if you've got a solid line or, if you're able to run the ball, and keep them honest, you're going to be fine.
Well, Bucks McGee, 2 weeks down, 2 wins in the books for our teams, and a big, daunting 0-2 for the Chiefs. So take us off air with some of your highlights and lowlights of week 2.
Got to give respect to Russell Wilson. We joked on him quite often, but he kept the Giants in it. Just that Giants defense tired out, and Cowboys survived. Bengals fans, we feel for you, but you got to look in the mirror and say all that money you spent on offense, maybe not it. And Chiefs, 0-2. Come on, Taylor, sing me a song.